Ladies, lovely to see you all at this Power Hour. I'm really thrilled today. Excuse the crown, self-styled Queen of the Swift Tribe, as many of you know, playing with video filters on Zoom. Thrilled, we have our first male presenter today, the amazing James White, who is going to talk to us about all things sales and make sure that we are getting a little bit better at charging what we're worth, because some of us are not always terribly good at doing that sort of thing. So, James, can I hand the floor, the screen, whatever else you would like from us to you?
Okay, well, thank you, Jill. As I say, I really appreciate the chance to come and do a few bits of slides with you guys and talk to you a little bit about selling and pricing and value, because I think that's a real interesting issue at the moment for a lot of business owners. So look, I'm going to sort of have a few slides and share a few thoughts, but I'd love you to just put your hands up, interact, however you do that with Jill normally. By the way, if you feel a lot of what I'm talking about is a load of old tosh as well, feel free to tell me that. I'm okay with that. That's right. I'm used to that from a selling perspective. Hopefully you won't, but I want to. I've been doing this for a number of years now, and ultimately there's always different opinions, and I respect different opinions, whether they're different to mine or not. I just know what I've been doing and how I'm focusing has helped people get that value up and really get that value and not be concerned about pricing, because in sales and when we sell in business, it's generally tends to be this one issue that people have lots of concerns and concerns about. So I've got a few slides, going to share a few bits of fun, just talk about a few things that I think will be relevant and hopefully some practical advice. I'll do that for a sort of half hour or so, and then be open to asking some questions around the challenges you guys have got. If you've got some specific scenarios that you find an issue with that you want to open up and share with, I'm very happy to then talk about that as well. I will only be able to see one thing at one time, probably. So if there's a question, Jill, I'm sure you'll be able to nudge me and say that someone else has said to do something a little bit different. So
yeah, look, absolutely. I'll monitor the question.
Fantastic. So look, I just wanted, how it's a stupid question, right? If someone said to me about like 2020, and how this year's been, everyone would be like, well, this year's just been, this is how I felt. And I'm sure you all felt on the 1st of January. We all felt really, really good. And ultimately this year has been a real surprise. And I love this quote, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. And this is the 2020 lemon. It's been a shit year, right? For a lot of people. And excuse my French, and apologies, hopefully you won't, if you have got kids or anyone like close to you, then I sometimes use the odd word that probably I shouldn't do, but apologies for that. But this year's been a tough year for everyone. And business has become, you've all got, a number of different businesses there that have become really important for you and your family to achieve what you want to do. And I always think that we're in this stage at the moment where everyone's feeling like, come on, give me a break, right? We just want to move forward and go forward in the right way. Who thought this was a boat? Put your hands up if you thought that looked like a boat. So I looked, okay, fair enough, you're better than me. I looked and thought everyone wants to, to travel and to do some fun stuff at the moment, but we just live in this real uncertain world at the moment. And one of the challenges that I'm talking to a lot of the clients that I work with and the members of my academy about at the moment is this uncertainty around what's going on from a business perspective. Where do people feel that everyone just feels just a bit like what's going on? We don't know what to do and how to do it. And the reality is, hopefully, I'm sure you as a community don't rely on the forecasts and the plans to cheer you up, because they don't look great. And everyone's talking about this negative and this element around lockdown more happening and the pandemic hitting everyone. And it just feels really, like, I feel sometimes we're surrounded like in a whole host of negativity. And that doesn't help us as business owners and those that work within businesses to do the right things. And I guess the key thing that I've also noticed from people I work with, that COVID has been huge for a number of elements around obviously people's mental health, but also the stress and the worry that people have around business, around their personal lives, what's going on, the challenge. I think these financial anxieties that are caused as a result of COVID, I don't think everyone will know, if it's not you, and hoping it's not in your position, that someone that's suffered some strain or some issues as a result of this. And it causes challenges, right? It causes issues in our family and our personal lives and what we do and how we do it. And it's one of those things that I think you've got two choices about. So you've got a choice where you can put your head in the sand and you can hope some of this stuff goes away. You've got a choice to hope, but I don't think hope's a good strategy. And one of the things that I try and work with people on is to focus on this idea of, you have this choice of doing what you want to do. I call it eat or be eaten. And unfortunately, the business world and the world that we live in right now will eat you up and spit you out the other side unless you decide to take some action. And you've all got some fantastic businesses here that you've built up. You're entrepreneurs or people that have built up what you have. And I think it's the next 12 to 18 months, unfortunately, are going to be really challenging for everyone. And so I think you have that choice of deciding, okay, am I going to let the world eat me up and take on and do all the things that I want to do? Or am I going to stand up and be counted and actually make sure I recession proof my business? I learn to sell effectively. I sell at the price that's the right price for my business and for what I do, so that I can ensure I can bring whatever you're doing, what you're doing for, and we'll talk about that in a moment, that you can not just stay alive, but thrive. So how can you go through the next 12 to 18 months and thrive and get your businesses to where you want them to be, so that it doesn't affect those family lives, it doesn't affect your personal life, and that feeling of worry and stress that comes. And I've been there myself as a business owner. The reason that the passion that I've got to do what I do is because I've been there myself as a business owner. When I've got to the 28th of the month at payday and literally needing £15,000 in a bank account and going, I don't have that, where am I going to get that from? And having to put that money in, and literally the stress and strain of being in that position, or having the challenge of not seeing enough business come in, or having more business than I've got to do with, and not pricing myself correctly, was a real issue that I went through. So I'm on a bit of a mission. So there's three things that I try and help people do. The first one is to create what I call Venus moments. So Venus Williams, brilliant, most could call her the GOAT, the greatest of all time, from a ladies tennis player, but I just love that image of her, just like success. And when we win in sales and in business and whatever it is that we do, if it's a new client, or we get a recommendation or a referral, or we deliver a project correctly, it's that great come on feeling. It's a brilliant feeling. And the mission that I have is to create more of those for the people that I work with, which I do. The second thing I also want to do is to inspire great achievements. One of the things that I think is a real shame that doesn't come through enough, in especially a lot of the business owners, and generally I'll talk a little bit about the businesses that I tend to work with, but they tend to be business owners that have built up a business already. They've got to a certain stage, but they're just that bit nervous about where the future is, and they're not sure what they want to, how they want to do. And when I talk to a lot of them, they don't maybe sometimes share how great they've been and what the journey they've been on. And I think sometimes there's a great analogy. Everyone always looks at the other mountain or the other people or what they're doing, but you don't realize yourself the mountain that you've climbed, or the things that you've done, or what you've achieved. And I'm on a mission to make sure those inspiration and achievements come through, but also then to uncover what I call true value, and the value that people present in what they do and the impact they can have with those that they work with. So that's what I do and how I do it. And I love the impact I'm working with. As I say, I didn't set out this way to be, but for whatever reason, about 90% of my client base tend to be ladies, which is why it was a great opportunity. And thank you to Jill again for letting me have the chance to speak in your group. I don't, for some reason, I tend to work with lots of different ladies. If I look at my Sales Success Academy, which I launched in lockdown, 7 out of the 10 members of that, the first intake, are ladies as well. So I enjoy working with males and females for sure, but it seems to be that at the moment the work that I'm doing is having, rightly or wrongly, an impact with some fantastic ladies and brilliant businesses. I'm going to share some of their stories in a little bit in a moment. So that's a little bit of an introduction to me. And by the way, I've run businesses, I invest in businesses, I've got a couple of companies, and but most of my time is spent now as a sales trainer and mentor. There's lots of resources. If you head on over to my website, jameswhite.business, there's lots of resources there. There's a YouTube channel. I do videos every Saturday. This one's a bit weird this Saturday on Halloween, so be bored about that one. But yeah, lots of content, lots of information around helping you win more business, and also be able to sell your value and never be concerned about the price that you charge, which was the topic that I talked about with Jill. And so look, what do I think? Pricing is interesting, right? But by the way, I'd love to put your hands up in the group, or who has an issue around pricing? Who finds pricing and the comments around pricing, or the way in which they deal with pricing with their customers and prospects, a challenge? It'd be really interesting to see the sort of responses that we're getting, and whether people find that they get this quote a lot, that people say, your quote's high, can you do it cheaper? Or you'll get this element of, oh, actually, I can see it being done for 1% over or 5% over here. Can you do it for 4%, for example, or that element? and it's really a challenge in many respects that people have, that pricing is too high. And I'm going to tell you something very hopefully a few useful facts, but I'll tell you this one now. It's never price that's the issue. It's never price that's the issue. It's just that your prospect doesn't value it enough. So I want you to be able to really think that through. If there's one profound thing I'll tell you from today, it's never price that's the issue. It's just that they don't value it enough. They cannot see that it's worth that. And what we've got to do as business owners is we've got to be able to make sure that that value and price perception is aligned and is closer to be where it wants to be. And some of the time pricing presents itself as a challenge to who we talk to and engage with. I'm going to go through a three-pronged approach that you can take to hopefully do that, with some specific actions that you can take. But one of the other key things that I think is sometimes the barrier to behind pricing is the people that I work with themselves. And if I'd have a pound for saying this, it would be, I'd be a millionaire for people that say, oh, I'm not sure I can charge that amount, or I'm really not sure of that figure, or that feels a little bit too much, or really will someone pay for that? And there was a lady who is in my academy who just literally closed a piece of business with a client on a retainer over the next 6 months, worth over just under £70,000, and she didn't think she could. And I said, believe me, this issue that you're going to solve for this prospect is going to make a big difference in their world. I knew the person, introduced them to that, and they've closed that deal. And because that belief in themselves wasn't there initially, and now because they started to see that they've gone after the right type of client with the right type of offering in the right type of way, that they're starting to see that belief. And now the quotes that go in are slightly different. So one of the things that I say to business owners that you've got to do, and the first little tip I'm going to give you around your pricing is, I'd like you all to think about your pricing and what your pricing is. And you feel free, if you're on mute, you can say what your pricing is now. Let's say your pricing is, I'll be honest with you, I charge on average £2,500 to £3,000 a day. That's on average what I charge. And people might say, really, that's ridiculous, you can't charge that much. And I go, like, yeah, totally understand, I'm really expensive, and I make no bones for being really expensive. That's absolutely fine. But what I want you to do is I want you to talk about whether it's a percentage or a figure or a fee you have. And what I want you to do is I want you just over the course of the next, just literally while you're listening to me now, just add 25% to that figure, okay? So whatever the price, whether it's a day rate you charge or a typical project rate or a typical percentage, for example, those of you that are in the financial services area, it may well be that you have a percentage. And I want you just to be able to take that price that you've got, and I want you then just to literally add 25% to it. Now, you might think, oh, James, you're talking rubbish, I can't charge that and whatever else for that. But what I want you then to do is I want you to repeat, and over the course of and Jill's going to let me know that you're going to do this, over the course of the next day, 2 days, I want you to repeat it literally as many times as you can. I literally want you to, in the shower, if your partners, your husband, your wives, whatever, are thinking, what the hell is she talking about? How the hell is she, why is she reading out these numbers? I want you to repeat the number time and time again. That's a 25% increase from what you are on right now. And the reason is that pricing, and one of the challenges that comes across pricing, and we're going to go and talk through some elements about why you can justify that. Your prospects and the people you work with are like animals. And if you go up to a dog and you're tentative around the dog senses that, the animal senses that, and they sense off what you're doing. And your prospects are no different. And when you are slightly uncomfortable or unconfident about your prices, your prospect sees upon that, and they use that to their advantage to lower the price and to put you in a position where you feel obliged to give way. And what I want you all to be able to do is to feel quite confident in your pricing. And we're going to talk about how you might need to do some actions and changes around that. But let's say your price at the moment is £500 or £1,000. I want you to add a 20% to it. So in which case, if it was £1,000, make it now 1,200. And I want you to literally just repeat over the course of the next 1 to 2 days, my price is £1,200. My price is £1,200. My price is £1,200. My price is £1,200. And literally be to the stage where people say, stop it, are you going mad? Because there is a repetitive element to what we do. And I think we had a hypnotherapist on here, which is really interesting in terms of programming your brain to be in a certain way and to do certain things is really important when it comes to pricing. And it starts generally, in my experience, because people don't believe that they're worth that amount. And they then come across very tentatively within the prospects and activity that they have. So just repeat your price. And by the way, at the moment, keep repeating that price. Keep repeating that price. If it's £500, add 20% to it. If it's £300, add 20% to it. I just want you to repeat that price on a regular basis. And do let me know if it does, even over the course of this webinar, I'd like to be interested to know if actually that other newer price starts to feel more comfortable than the older price that you had. You'll be amazed at the difference it is. Now, people are going to say to me, James, I can't charge that price because the competitors in my market aren't going to able to offer that, and people will never pay that. And so we're going to talk through some elements around that. But as I mentioned before, it's never about the price. It's always about the value. It's what value you can show to your prospects. And what I want you to do is to think about over the course of the next few moments is actually what that value is, and we're going to talk through some elements around that. But a couple of things first, these are just basic elements around pricing that I wanted you to make sure that you are covering. And the build hasn't happened on here, but a couple of really first 101 points around price. The first thing is this: you need to know what it costs you to produce or deliver your service. So for example, or product. And so for example, if your product or service is, a number of the guys here were accountants, for example. If it takes you 6 hours, 8 hours to do a set of books, for example, let's take that as an example. Or if you're in financial advice and you're giving someone to find a new pension for them, and it's going to take you 6 to 8 hours to do, or 10 hours to do that. For a start, you need as business owners to make sure that you know how long it takes you to do, whether it's materials and the time it takes for that. And so I really encourage you all to really go back through sometimes and look at how long it takes you to do certain activities and what that looks like. Because if you are pricing yourself at a point where you are doing it, for want of a better phrase, at minimum wage or lower, then go and get a job. Go and find a job somewhere out there. There are other jobs out there that are less stressful than running a business. So the first thing I say to people is don't, because if you are underneath that minimum wage figure, why? What is it you're doing? That's the first thing we need to change. The second thing is that your pricing, and we're going to talk about target market and the big underlying driver behind pricing in target market in a moment. But your pricing should be relevant to your market. So what do I mean by that? So if your target client is a high-end business, your product shouldn't be necessarily cheap. You need to, there's a saying that I sort of use a lot of times, is the curtains need to match the duvet. The two need to align. If you are literally charging, if you are going after a audience that's a category of audience that is maybe, for example, not a luxury audience, but an entry point audience, then fair enough. Okay, maybe your pricing is linked to that. But then you need to make sure that your pricing, the time it takes you to produce that service, you can still make a profit. And I'm not going to go into business 101s because you guys have all done that, but there is a minimum set of return elements you can do. And if you haven't read, there's a brilliant book by a guy called Mike Michalowicz called Profit First. And what he basically says is that most business owners across industries will work on a margin, a standard margin they should have. So you should be generally, if your business is service-based, your margin should be in the region of 30 to 50% maybe. So if it's taking you 6 hours to do something and you want to charge a price, then you should be hopefully looking to make an additional 30 to 50% on that figure. We can come and talk about some of this stuff afterwards, but I think these are some basic elements that I think you need to know. The third element of this is also the target that you have. The biggest mistake that people have around pricing is that they don't know what it is that they're trying to get to and what that target looks like for the good of themselves and their family. So what do I mean by that is that in sales, I cannot go anywhere in sales unless I know where my target is and what I'm trying to do. And if that target is you want to achieve £50,000 of revenue, maybe you could set yourself a salary expectation. Maybe you've set yourself a figure that you want to have so you and your family can do nice things. I don't know. Whatever it is that you have got as your target, you need to be able to know how many you need to be able to sell of a certain amount in order to be able to get that target. So for example, if I wanted to achieve £20,000, it's much easier to sell 100 items at 200 than it is 400 at 50. And we'll talk about some of these aspects as well in a moment, but know that target. We're then going to talk about the impact and the emotional return in a moment, as well as being different. But the other thing I'd like you to do is test out some pricing on customers you don't like. And you might think, what do I mean by this? But there are what I call hold your nose customers. We all have them, okay? They are people that we generally just don't really enjoy working with. They are a pain in the arse to deal with. They are they don't value us. They moan all the time at what we do, and yet we still do the same thing with them. So one of the key, and people say, I can't say to someone, it's one of the most liberating things you can ever do is to let go of a customer that you think that no longer values you. And I strongly encourage you to do it. I've done it on a number of occasions. The feeling is just quite liberating. Someone was talking about enabling people to find out where they are and feel liberated. It feels liberating when you let go of someone that doesn't value you, when you let go of someone, a customer that you just thinks you're a bit worthless. It makes a difference. But way to test that out is to increase your pricing with them, whether it's by 5 or 10 or that 20% that we've talked about. Just go back to them, and I'm happy, and I share some resources around how you can increase your prices with existing customers. But go back to them and start to do that. You'll be amazed at what happens.
We have one of our members, James, who is a good friend of mine, and she runs a business where she sometimes has some very difficult customers. And exactly as you're saying, she says to me, well, I know that's another 10 or 15% on their bill before I start, because I don't really want them.
It's such a good point.
Yeah, she does do that quite regularly.
By the way, look, some of these things we can, there's a lot I wanted to talk through in terms of this, this session. We can come back to some of these points, but just use price elasticity on customers you don't like, because the worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to leave you. Yes, sure, part of what I do, and we'll hopefully talk about, is helping you find replacements for them, but it just feels liberating. It just feels great to lose people that don't value you. And one of the things that goes back around that reinforcement element that I mentioned is you're repeating your own value. What you want to do is also then get away from the people that are taking away at your value, are chipping away at your value. And if you've got those people that are continually trying to do that, then it's not worth doing. The other thing I'd say about pricing, and this is a really important, I have a Sales Success Academy, which I have, and I had a guy that's a good friend of mine who sold his business for a significant figure, to an 50 million. Anyway, so long story short, he basically said, his golden rule is always, it's easier to go down in price than to go up. So, for example, if I've got a price negotiation, and that's why I'm adding, helped you talk about adding that 20% onto your pricing, it's easier to go down and negotiate down than it is to go higher. So one of the key barriers that you've got to be able to get feeling comfortable is to know you can go with that higher price. And if you then get a question from a prospect that says, I don't think it's worth that, or I don't want to pay that, or I'm not comfortable with that price, we can talk about some techniques that we can then use to be able to find out what's in their mind that's stopping them thinking that. Because invariably, going back to what I said at the start, it is never the price that's the issue. It's just in their mind, they don't value it enough. And so our job as business owners and those that want to be successful from a sales perspective, is our job is to get inside the head of that person and find out what's causing them to feel that way. And we do that through, and I'm not going to cover it all totally here. I do it through some of the other stuff that I do. And there's a workshop that I'm running, which you may be interested in afterwards, but it's about the questions and the way we probe and understand that makes that happen. But look, so those are some basics around price, but there are 3 fundamental elements to price, 3 fundamental elements that can ensure you get the value that you want. The first thing is, why are they buying? And we're going to talk through this in a moment. And why are they buying from you? The second thing is your wants and what you do, okay? And the third issue is then who they are. And one of the key lessons that I learned in business, and I'll talk about this in prospecting, is that in 2013, I raised £500,000 for a business that I still own. And but long story short, I made a lot of mistakes in that bit. I wasted about £250,000 in that business by not being able to be clear about my existing target customer. And it's the one thing that I do now that's the biggest factor towards pricing, is who you engage with. And it's if it's one thing I can tell you from today that I learned the hard way is to not do this. And I have a model on my website and on my YouTube channel around how sales is like dating, rightly or wrongly. Some people like it, some people don't. And the reality is, I say to people, when you were meeting your partner for the first time, you didn't just go after anyone and everything. You had a criteria that you identified that was your perfect sweet spot. And sales and business is no different. And it's a myth to think that we can be everything to everyone. We can't. And the benefits around being able to who we are and what we're specific about and focusing on that group will enable you to get a higher price. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But firstly, why do your prospects buy what you do? So look, the element around sales, and this is the number 101 element around sales, and this links in again into pricing, is that you have to find out the reason why someone is buying what you do. And there is a huge amount of emotions that get created when we buy things. And the emotions that get created as a result of that, whether it's joy, happiness, anger, whatever it is, that are hugely important to this. But these emotions are really, really critical that we can identify in people what it is that they gain from working with us. So, for example, some of the business that we've got here, like I'm thinking, for example, of Bink Blossom, you're the graphic designer. The emotion that someone will get when they see your service will be, oh my God, it'll be joy. It'll be you've brought to life what they have, and it's just suddenly made them go, wow, look at what my brand stands for. For example, in Bev, you know, in someone being able to really clearly articulate their story, they feel that joy of being able to think, I've got clarity. I feel they've given them some hope. You know, I'm looking at sort of, for example, Sarah, you talk about, you know, from a vegan perspective, they're now not in pain anymore, for example. Maybe they were in pain previously because of their diet or what they were doing, and they're not in pain. In the accountants, for example, Hannah, you know, what would you give? You give people assuredness. My accountant for me is literally like, I'm happy when I know they sign my books off, and I'm like, oh, it's thankfulness. So we've got to create those and find out what those emotions are in what we do with people. But there are only two reasons, and feel free to, whether we'll have time to go for this now, there are only two reasons why people buy things. Only two. I've done these presentations for a number of years now, and there are only two. The first is they have a problem, and they have a problem like where it's backache or toothache or whatever it is that the business has, they have a problem. The second thing is they have a want. There's a term around need. It is not a need. I do not need to go on a holiday at the moment, but I want to. There is a difference between a need and a want is hugely more powerful than a need. There is a third thing, which is just me there, but it's aspiration. And that's the only time I'm going to get a six pack is the aspiration. But the point being, go back to those two things, that problem. So there's a problem that's going on in their world right now, or they have this want to go and do something or be something or achieve something. They have a want to sleep at night because they're worried about their taxes not being on time. They have a want to not feel bloated because of the food they're eating. They have a want to feel happy and peaceful in life again. Whatever it is you have. And if you can combine the two, if they've got a problem and want together, even better. But it's really, really important we go back to those elements around understanding what is the basics of them wanting to buy. And the other key element you have to work through as part of this is people buy for very selfish reasons. They buy for what it can do for them. And this is still the case whether you work in a business environment or in a personal environment. If you work in a business environment, people say it doesn't work that way, it does. They still don't want to look embarrassing in front of their boss or someone they work with that they've chosen the wrong supplier. So we've got to think about the business, the selfish reasons that people will buy. And the final element around pricing, which is really key, that so many people get wrong, is they don't buy what you do, they buy the thing that it gives them. They don't buy, so for example, in the case of financial advice, for example, I'm not buying the financial advice, I'm buying being in control. I'm buying feeling that I've got a bright future in front of me, for example. I'm actually buying the finance. People say to me, what do you sell, James? And I say, I sell fat bank balances. I sell people spending time with their families. I sell people smiling. And they're like, what do you want about? And I'm like, it's because that's the outcome of the work that I do. And it's the outcome of what you do. And when you tap into this, and why this is so important for pricing, is when you tap into these elements, the price actually becomes less relevant than the normal. The price isn't the issue that then is the factor and the focus. It's what you can give them and how they can make that happen. And the final element around this is going back to these emotional elements. We buy with our hearts, not with our heads. So I always say to people, you know, there's a difference in these two pens. And I'm not a flash arsehole because that's got a Mont Blanc pen. I had it bought for me for a birthday present. I wouldn't have bought it otherwise. But the difference between these two items is 350, 400 pounds. Why would anyone in their right mind buy this compared to this? And it's because of how it makes someone feel. And as business owners, we have to tap into what it makes someone feel and what it's going to give them and what are the outcomes and what it's going to mean for them personally. And when we do that, other things happen. So one of the actions that I'd say to you around pricing, I'd encourage you to do is just, you know, and use a notepad or whatever it is. I have my best moments sometimes like it's over a glass of wine. I'm sitting down, I'm just jotting stuff and brainstorming. just go back and define the 30 top. I actually say to my academy members the top 50, but do the top 30 problems or wants that your customers have, and what outcomes do you really achieve for them. What do you actually make happen? Not actually you do X for them. What does that mean? What does that give them? And if you don't know that, I encourage you deeply now to go and find that out, because when you do, there are some amazing things that come up from there, which we can then uncover as part of the sales process. And go back, what are these deep fears and desires? What are these elements that they've got? What is it in you, what you do, that makes them go, wow? And what is really in it for them? So pricing is very much about the drivers and the problem will want. There is only two reasons. It will only ever be two reasons. I've challenged, feel free to challenge me. I'm very happy to be challenged. There are only two reasons why people buy things. It's a problem or want. And ultimately there'll be if I ask you all to describe the last few things that you've bought, I bet you, I'm very happy to, Jill, if anyone wants to put anything out what they bought recently, I'll bet you I'll be able to find it. Underneath it, there'll be a problem or a want that's caused that. So that's the first thing, is the problem or want. We've got to be able to define that. The second thing is you and what you do. And your bigger purpose is something that's really, really important when it comes to business. And this is so important. Simon Sinek is someone that you hopefully have all heard about, great business author that talks about the power of why. Brilliant book. I really encourage you to read it if you haven't. And I'm sure you guys, but by the way, actually, there's a little tip that I provide for people, which is there's an app. If you're an avid reader like me, but you're short of time because of family members and the such like, there's a brilliant app that you can use. Hope you can see my thing called Blinkist. And if you've ever seen Blinkist basically will cost you £40 a year, but it gives you books. It basically goes through as many books as you can imagine in 10 minutes. Basically, you can define a book in 10 minutes. So it's a really great way to, if you don't want to have the time to learn a book, then Blinkist is a good thing to do. But what I encourage you to define is your duvet chuck reason, because when it comes to pricing, if you can't fit, so your duvet chuck, by the way, at my age, it's it's my bladder. But the point is, normally it's what is your reason to get up in the morning? Why are you doing what you're doing? And if what you're doing is just because of money or just because you want to be rich or whatever, then okay, that's fair enough. But it's slightly more challenging to be comfortable and confident about that. Whereas if your reason for doing something is because of a passion that you've got, your story, where you've been, that has to come out, and we want to bring that to out. And there is a time and place for it to come out, but that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And one of the key elements that Simon Sinek talks about, and I fundamentally agree with it, is in sales, is that they want that, especially on higher price items or when the price is slightly higher, they want to know that your heart's in it. They want to know that you really care. They want to know that you really do mean the right thing and you're doing it not just to tick a box, because it's your passion, it's your desire, and that's what you're about, it's your purpose. And being able to share that is really important. And one of the things I see a lot of in businesses is that everyone goes to the bottom, and we're going to see this a lot in the next 12 months as well, is literally everyone's going to go to the bottom on pricing. And the ones that will stand out more are those that are a bit higher in price. I'm really, I appreciate you saying to me I'm a bit more expensive. The reason I price my service at this level is because of this, and this reason, because I'm passionate about doing this, because I know the impact it can have on you as a client. And therefore, I stand behind this pricing because I'd rather deliver this than this. It's easier for everyone to be at the bottom around pricing, and I really encourage people to just have, and that's why I said that confidence thing at the start, repeat your pricing, and to be able to repeat it. And people might say, well, I'm going to lose out on business, I'm going to lose out on opportunities, as we'll come on to in a moment. They may not be the right opportunities for you, and we can look to qualify those out. But pricing is really, really important, and be able to share your vision. For example, as accountants or mortgage advisors or people, media companies, find out your sweet spot, where you're at, what's your difference. And it's so much easier to be able to price something when you can deliver a great service, rather than necessarily be in a position where you deliver it at a lower price, but then you can't meet the service elements and expectations that people have. So great. I always ask people this question. These are two coffee tables. Okay, the difference between the two of them. So if anyone guess, if I was here's an interesting question. Actually, if I was to guess you, who thinks this one is the most expensive one? Put your hand up. Who thinks this one's the most expensive one? Anyone? A mixture of people, but I've gone back a slide. But the point being is this one here is one of the most expensive tables you can get. It's £11,500. Now, I wouldn't ever imagine buying a thing like that because I wouldn't value it enough. But The point being is this one here is a standard one that's £300. The point is there aren't many others that are in this sort of price range. So therefore they naturally stand out as a high price product. So it doesn't make sense to be in the same group as everyone else. Yes, you've got to be able to know these reasons why they're buying and who we're targeting at, but that pricing is really, really specific. But there are lots and lots of, I looked online, there are lots and lots of coffee tables around the 300 to 700 pound figure. There's lots of them that you will fall into a trap of finding absolutely hundreds of them, whereas actually you'll find very few that are £11,000. And the difference is because one of them is able to stand out because of who they are and what they do in their story. And there was a story behind this table that was around, I didn't quite understand, I'm not their target market, but it makes a difference. So the key element around what you do and what you offer is really important to define. And I was told once in business, is your business a vitamin or a painkiller? And it's a really important thing. Is your business a vitamin or a painkiller? Because if your value proposition is that you can take pain away from people and you can make their life easier and you can stop stress and you can all those other elements, again, your value proposition and what you offer, it won't be the money that will be the factor for them. It will be other things. There'll be other issues. And if we get confident and comfortable about saying it and talking about our price, we can work these things out. But work out what your value proposition is. What is it that you do? Why do you do what you do? What do you deliver? How does it impact those people? And what are the elements that you can gain from that? I'm going to give an example of someone in a moment that's done that. But one example, for example, would be Katie Saywell, who I work with. So Katie is a dog trainer, and dog trainers generally charge very standard figures, £50, £60 an hour. On average, they'll do a 6-week course for maybe £200-300. Katie charges nearly £1,000 for her course because she is the world's leading dachshund dog trainer. If you want to search on, if you have a dachshund dog, search on the dog's code. She's just an absolute brilliant lady at being able to solve this. And she does this by being able to be focused on her value and what she does. So her reason for doing it, she had a little dog called Chipolata. That's her dachshund. She wanted to find someone that could actually do the training for them. She couldn't. She learned. She worked herself out so she could train. And now is in a position where she was in the police force. She left the police force. Now runs a brilliant business and charges 3 or 4 times what other people in that industry charge because she has built herself a speciality in being a dachshund dog trainer. And if you think about it, if you owned a dachshund and if you were to go and talk to someone and the issue will be around the value that she stops people, the dogs barking, she stops the dogs biting, she stops the dogs chewing up furniture, all these other family emotional issues, the outcomes. When she then starts to talk to people about what it would mean for example, dog anxiety is another one. If anyone's got dogs, dog anxiety is one of the challenges. She talks to the owner about what it means to be able to feel that the dog wouldn't be anxious when she leaves. The owner's like, I'll do anything for it. The price, she could write her own check basically because of her value proposition. So really, really important point around being able to define your value and what you do and the outcome. And she focuses on pets that bite, pets that affect children in families, pets that chew things. She's got literally an unlimited amount of people that come into it, and she's grown her business significantly in lockdown, even though she used to do things face to face. She now does it online. So it's a really good example of knowing the value that she can offer and who they focus on. The other key element around value is you have to go out to your market and share value. You have to provide value. There's a phrase that I say to everyone: you have to serve before you try and sell. And if you want someone to come to you and just see how good you are and see your price, without you then absolutely telling them what that or giving them some value that makes them think that, then it's going to be a challenge. So you have to go, and the best sales and business people provide value to their market. They educate, they provide support and help. Again, like I said to you, in my case, I literally will create content all day long and provide content and resources to help business owners that are great entrepreneurs sell. That's my passion. I'll do as much as I can. There's lots of free resources you can consume. I've got 150 videos, 100. You can consume as much if you wanted to. If you thought I was an arsehole, then you would. But the point is, if you wanted to gain the value, you can get as much of that because I want to add value to my market before I then look to then try and sell to them. And The other element around the why is that there is a model I have called TrackFair. I won't have time to go through it all now, around how knowledgeable, trustworthy, reliable, approachable you are. There are some characteristics that people look for when they want to be able to know if the person they're engaging with is, does their appearance look good? Are they recommended? Are they enthusiastic? Do they care? So these elements, again, make a massive difference in how you can able to justify a price that's slightly higher. Because if you're able to show that you're knowledgeable, if you're able to show the insights in your marketplace, if you're able to show that you're trustworthy and delivered on things, each one of these is a rung in the ladder that enables you to move that pricing point upwards. So my point around pricing here is review your vision and mission. What are you doing this for? What is your inspiration? What's your duvet chuck? What's the whole driver? And what do you do? Why do you do it? Firstly, what's that driver? Why is it so important? And what is it that provides remarkable, measurable, distinctive value? What is it so specific about that makes your end client go, oh, yeah, that's great. I'm getting something from that. And the third point, and I'm conscious of time because I wanted to make sure we've got a power hour. I'm going to apologize, Jill, if I've over some of these. I know we're a few minutes getting started, but is your perfect client and why are they what they are and what do they do? So the key thing is this: you cannot be everything to everyone, but you can be something to someone. And I got this mistake very badly wrong, and I encourage you. It doesn't mean to say you can't sell to everyone. I'll be honest with you, my typical client, and you'll see it in a moment, I have a typical persona of a client that generates revenue of between 50 to 80,000 pounds a year, to a set of characteristics. My largest client is a city trading company. I choose to work with them, but you have to focus on pricing about being something to someone, not everything to everyone. And if you try and do too many elements, and when you know the ins and real specific elements of that audience and who that audience is and what they're about and what pain points you solve for them or what problems you solve for them in that respect, then what you'll find is that it resonates much more with them. Great. If you chase your rabbits, you both will escape. You've got to be able to, you want to increase your pricing, go and serve a market really, really well. And there's a great quote that I say to people, get a PhD in your customers, your target customers' problems. Focus on them, understand who they are, what they're specific. One of my Sales Success Academy members, it was funny enough, is in the financial area, and they offer services to lots of people. I said, who's your perfect client? What's your perfect client? And he's like, well, I work with families that have got wealth and they have issues. And okay, fine, we've now developed a niche that you can go after and add value to, that you're able to define. So the what, the where, the who, define this. Just do this work, because when you start to get clearer around this, so many other things become easier. And you should focus this based upon two elements. There's what I call demographics, which are the physical elements of where they live and what they might earn and whether they're male or female or gender or their profession and their age, but also the psychographics, the elements about who they are, what they do, what brands do they like, what other elements work for them. And I'll give you some example of mine, for example. Those are some of mine on the right-hand side that I work with. Now, people might say, oh, I fit in that category. It doesn't mean to say every box has to be ticked, but you're trying to identify a perfect sweet spot for you. And I believe there's three, and I'm going to just running out of time slightly, but there are three areas for a target market. The first thing is there is enough of them. There is enough of these people. It's a bit like me saying I live in Somerset, and it's a bit like me saying I'm looking for I don't know, Eskimos in Somerset. There's probably not that many of them, right? There could be a few, but probably not that many of them. So therefore, it probably wouldn't be my target market. The second thing is they are prepared to pay for what you do, and prepared to pay is the value that we've just talked about. There's 20%. I'd actually even like you all to double your fees. And would that person be prepared? Doesn't mean they say they feel comfortable, but would they be prepared to pay for it? And the final thing is, do you enjoy working with them? Because if you don't enjoy working with these people, but they're good payers, for example, someone says to me, do you want to go and work and work with surgeons? My answer was no. I've got two friends that are surgeons, and both of them are the most arrogant people in the world. I couldn't think of anything worse than working with a surgeon. Apologies to anyone that's got surgeons in the family, but the two that I know are incredibly arrogant, and I just wouldn't enjoy working with them. So for me, it wouldn't be a target market that I'd focus on. Now, going back to this, it is important that you are relative and you understand that space. So, for example, the Range Rover is different price to a Ford or Hyundai. There is a different price point, and you have to be able to understand that there is a certain element to that which is you wouldn't try and go and get the Range Rover for the price of the Hyundai, for example, or the Hyundai for the price of the Range Rover. So there is a value element to this, and this is about picking that target client. Is there enough of them? Are they prepared to pay for what you do, and do you enjoy working with them? So I'll give you an example of this. A lady called Sue Reese, who I worked with for 18 months. So Sue is a recruitment consultant who specializes in, previously was specializes in the finance field. She was previously, because she was in the same category as everyone else, charging 12% for £25,000 jobs. So she was earning on average on commission sort of £3,000. She now charges 20% for £80,000 jobs, because what she has done is she's developed herself as a niche at board level for pharmaceutical, life sciences, and biotech companies based in Oxfordshire. So Sue Reese is the leading person for those companies in that space. And she can now confidently, because she now talks to the CEOs at those organizations, not about recruitment, but about how do they bring the right people on board to achieve their global ambitions. Where do they want to go as a company, and how have they got the talent to do that? So the chief executives are now not worrying about recruitment. They're now thinking about achieving their goals, because those are the things that keep them up at night. And therefore, when Sue's now been able to build a position that shows how she's got people that she's serviced and helped in that way, she's now able to charge, £16,000 for 4 times the price for a different type of job. So it can work when you know your audience, and it doesn't mean to say that she doesn't go after everyone. She does. If someone comes to her, she can choose whether she works with that person, but she's in a far better position, because when she has a CEO of a pharmaceutical company now that goes to her or Michael Page, and she's got a list of evidence of people that she's helped, she understands the dynamics of that industry, she gets to know what they're about. The biggest issue for the CEOs of that company is not the price they pay, but the time and the effort and the commitment involved in doing something. Therefore, they've got no problems in paying it Sue extra for that. So it's a really good example of where, by focus, and Sue used to focus on everyone. She'll take the business if it's there and it's easy, but where she focuses her time, and where she generally will now spend 90% of the time, is in a specific area. She knows her sweet spot. So I really encourage you to define your perfect prospect. Write down as much of them as you can. Define who they are and their psychographic. Because when you get to know them so well, and you know what's inside their world, and we'll come on to the other part around selling, which is the natural point, is they're going to want to build a rapport with you because you know them, you understand what's going on. And the second question I would ask you is, if you define that target audience, if they viewed your website or your social content, would they know it's them? So one of the questions is would your target client, who you've identified, know when they get to your social media or your website that, oh, that's me. Oh, that's me, actually. Oh, this is relevant. This is relevant for me as a person. Would they know it's them, or would they go, actually, I'm just not sure this is who this is relevant for? And if you pitch for anything, you will get everything. And if you want to become a generalist, you'll get generalist prices. If you want to increase your prices, become something to someone, not everything to everyone. It's the biggest factor I can tell you. Again, the biggest mistake I made. I'm very happy to talk about that in more detail. But the return for using that service is, what's the return that you can give them? So this ABC, the element of why they're buying, who you are and why you're doing it, and who you're targeting, enables you then to be able to define that value and that pricing. And again, by going up and being elastic. When I was doing my mentoring, I'll be honest with you, I was charging nearly £750 a day. I've now moved that up because I've been able to focus on the sweet spot of the clients I work with, and I can show a return, and the impact is more valuable than anything else as a result of that. People will pay more for an experience that works and that gives them the result. They are prepared to pay. 27% of people will pay for a premium service. 27% of people will pay for a premium service. The question is, have you defined it such that it is a service that ticks their boxes, that covers their emotional thoughts? If you just want to charge 27% for a premium service, that is just because you want to, it might be more of a challenge. If you know that audience has a specific issue, you can then become quite clear at working with that. So look, I say to people, set that bar high. New artists, so if anyone's in the artistic world, but new artists are now advised to charge their first price painting at 25,000. Why? because they can only go lower if they go low. But if they go high, it sets the bar and it moves higher as a result of that. If you pitch low, you will get low. If you pitch at a higher level and feel confident about pitching at a higher level, yeah, there are some techniques which you can learn to be able to overcome some of the questions and queries you'll get. But the reaction you'll get is people will start to ask you, why are you more expensive? What is it you're doing? What impact are you having? How do you deliver that service? More so than necessarily being the same price as everyone else. And like I always say to people, it's the outcome that matters. It's the gold medal that matters, not the work. And this is the bit that goes unnoticed, but it's the glory that we have, and it comes from doing the work at knowing that audience, being able to be really clear about what you do and what the impact and the drivers that you can make a change for them are. So look, I'm really sorry I've whizzed through quite a lot of stuff. It's hopefully what I've given you, and I've tried to get all this in 45 minutes, and I've probably gone on a bit longer than I wanted to, so apologies for that, ladies. But one thing I would say is, if I have got a workshop that I'm running, and by the way, I'm open, just hope it's okay, Jill, that on the 19th of November,
Yep.
There's a workshop that I'm running, which is on a Thursday night. It doesn't go to me, it goes to something called Every Child Needs a Christmas, which is a campaign in Somerset to help kids have a Christmas present, those that haven't got the resources to have that. So the figure basically is 4-week course. If you want to come along, we'd love to see you there. But more importantly, there's lots of resources I provide around sort of sales and helping you get your value up to where you want it to be. But I hope it's been useful and given you some insights into how you can get that price up. And I'll be very happy to ask any questions, or feel free to challenge me. If what I've said doesn't make sense, then feel free. But hope that's been useful.
James, that's absolutely amazing. Can I first say a huge thank you? Secondly, can I say to anybody on the call, if you want to go, we don't think you're rude. We're carrying on recording. I personally would like to have a little bit more James's time if he can spare it.
Sure, no problem.
So please don't feel that you have to hang on. Do go. We're still recording. James, that was fabulous. And particularly if I just talk at a personal level, I'm rebranding and changing my offering to some degree in the new year, and that really has been really helpful. A lot of us know some of this stuff, but it's all about how we hear it and how it connects with us, and I think, yeah, that is absolutely priceless. So thank you very much. Please, ladies, if anybody James, you're all right for a few more minutes?
Yeah, I'm happy for half hour or so, no worries at all. So,
do you want to stop sharing and then we can see everybody when they wave at me? That will be a bit more. Beverly's waving frantically. I know Beverly wants to say something, so I'm going to say, Beverly, the floor is yours, followed by Blossom, and then we'll work our way through.
Oh, thank you, James. Brilliant. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because when I coach people to speak, I say all that stuff. And yet I have never related it to me, my business and sales. So, yeah, I just want to thank you for that and say that, yeah, everything you've said resonates. So a quick question for you, because you go through it and actually now we look at it and go, well, that sort of makes sense now. Why didn't we think of it before? Can you truly do that without some certain techniques in how you talk to people in terms of converting? From maybe they've gone, oh yeah, I'm really interested in and everything else, that conversion bit.
Yes, is the honest answer. So the honest answer is yes, you can. So I haven't talked about sales conversion or techniques around sort of some of the elements today. But the 101 around sales is listening. Okay, and when you ask the right questions initially at the start, so the first thing I encourage people to do is to listen and ask the right questions at the start when you're engaging with a prospect. And so if you're talking to someone, the questions are all the what, the how, the where. Talk to me more about those elements. And there's a number of videos that I've got that will do that. And when you're able to qualify based upon also your criteria. So what I encourage you to do, there's a resource I'll happily share with Jill as well called a sales success criteria. And what I encourage you to do is to put together 8 to 10 criteria of your perfect client. And then you can ask a question related to that. So it could well be, for example, that let's say take one of the accountants, they might only want to work with someone that has turnover of over £100,000. The question they might ask then is, talk to me more about your, the current size of the business. How long have you been, how much have you grown over the last few years, and what sort of level are you at now? That sort of question, people are open to sharing that, and you can then mark them as a yes or no. And by criteria, you can then qualify. Because what you don't want to do is, if you are talking to someone that isn't your fit, because they don't value what you do or they don't understand your service offering in the level you want to, then you might need to say, look, I'm really sorry, I don't think I'm the right fit for you because it seems you don't value X and Y, and that's a key criteria of what I do.
Yeah.
The honest answer is yes, you can get to that point of moving through people through that funnel and through that process. But the first thing I say to people at sales meetings is just to get to know people and use that listening and questioning and probing. Salespeople that, or business people that focus on themselves in initial meetings get it badly wrong. The first meeting you have with a prospect should just be about you, about them. You should be talking for 20% of the time, and they should be talking for 80% of the time.
So what do I say, people? It's never about you. Get over yourselves.
You do. It's absolutely right. Thanks,
so
Yeah.
right.
Blossom, did you want to ask James a question?
Oh, yes, please. Thank you, James. Brilliant. I think my questions are quite straightforward, probably, really. But I really need to put my prices up, and I'm really bad at doing it. I love the repeat after me technique. I'm already feeling more comfortable with the 20% on top.
What is your pricing, Blossom?
Oh, I can't possibly tell you.
But it's no, but go for
it up for me.
I charge per hour because I'm so afraid to fix my price on a job that basically I feel like I'm at least I'm covered if I'm charging my hourly rate. So I'm quite good at knowing how long it takes me to do stuff, but I actually think the value I've placed on what I do is too low. That's part of my question as well, is how do you, what do I need to consider when I'm working out what it costs me to deliver my service, because it's a service. So, is it the years of experience I've got? How do I value those kinds of aspects? And then there's a second half to my question as well, which is how to deal with existing clients, because a huge number, I've got so many clients that come, it's repeat business all the time, and they're going to be disappointed. There's no doubt about it.
No, we're not, Blossom.
So it's a really good point, Blossom. So in terms of how to value you, I guess I go back to that target that you've got, that you want to achieve, and what you want for your family and what you do. So one of the challenges is people, none of us are money grabbing people, but if I said to you, your family, you could pay for something for a holiday for your family or kids, or whatever it is that's a driver for you that you deserve and that your family deserves, then why shouldn't you have that, would be my question. If that means you need to earn an extra £10,000 or whatever that figure is, then the first thing I think is go back to that vision of what you want to try and put in place. And once you then are able, let's say you want to earn an additional 10,000. So what you will then say is, okay, so what does that work out? I work on average 4 days a week, and you can work out on an hourly basis. And maybe it's an extra £10 an hour, £15 an hour, not sure what that figure is. In terms of the question around existing versus new, of course, if you want to go after, so I would price it at that level for new clients. And one of the things I encourage you to do, and I did this with Sue Reese, I made a vow with her. We sort of wasn't like blood brothers, but she made a vow with me, and I got it repeated, that she would never go below a certain price, because that wasn't worth what her value was. She'd achieved so much, she had so much of a career, and you will have achieved so much skills and building up your knowledge. And it was devaluing you as a person and her as a person to go below that figure. So what I would say to you is, set your limit, set your indomitable limit that says, I'm happy to go to whatever, but I will not go below X figure. And if someone that just, because you'll feel so much better when you stick to that limit, and you'll feel more assured and more powerful as a result of it. In terms of existing clients, what I would do is I would go back to those clients, and I would go back to some of the ones that I'd bracket them into 3 categories. Who are the ones that you really need and you really like working with, that are really important and that value you? Who are the ones that are in the middle, and who are the ones you don't like? And I would use that 10%, 15% on those people that you don't like as a strategy. But before you do that with existing clients, let's see if you can put more at the top of the funnel to be able to replace those. So my question would be build a plan for that maybe involves you going and finding your target market, who you identify you're perfect for, why you're perfect for them. Go and start to try and drive business in that area by creating content. So let's say your target clients are, I don't know, entrepreneurs like me, for example. You might then create content and value that makes me go, oh, look at that, I can see why I'd go with Blossom, not with someone else. So automatically you're talking to your audience about the problems and the challenges they face, and therefore you could find people that come into the funnel. So it hopefully then means you can then spit out some of the people at the bottom. So I don't encourage people to do this straight away, because otherwise if you, oh, James told me to get rid of all my clients, instead of you're left with no revenue, but build a plan for it. And one of the great things to do is to build a plan over the next 6 months to say, right, what percentage do I want of those paying clients? And I've currently got 40% of them, and in 6 months time I want 30% of them, and in 12 months time I want 20% of them. To build that plan over a period of time as well. So but it starts from now. Yeah, your new value starts from now, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Great.
Bloss, it does.
Yeah.
We're okay.
Thank
James,
you.
thanks, Bloss. James, Jennifer's asking about the situation you can be in if you've been referred by a client and the referrer already knows how much you charge the client.
Yeah, really great, really great question. The way I would handle that normally was, I'd say every client I work with, every situation is slightly different, and therefore what I'm focusing on here is different people have different needs. What I want to make sure is I deliver to your needs. It may well be that I can offer a lower price than the existing price, but when I understand your needs and what you're looking for and what you're looking to achieve, then I can then price accordingly. So I would approach it on the basis that everyone's slightly different, and then start to ask those questions. Talk to me about your situation. What is it, the problem that you're looking to resolve? There's a great model that I encourage people to use called BANT. I don't know if you've seen, there's a brilliant video, that's me being a bit self-congratulatory, on my website, on my YouTube channel, it's my most popular video, and it stands for budget, authority, need, and timing. Need is the only one I don't like. It should be problem or want, but it wouldn't sound as good if it was BAPT. But the point is, what's the budget? So can they afford you? And the way you can ask those type of questions, who's making the decision, the authority? What's the actual problem or want? What's the driver for them to do this? And when do they want to do this by? And a couple of little tips: you'd never ask someone as a budget, what is your budget for this project? Because if you ask them what's their budget, they'll never tell you the figure. But what you should say is, you say, typically my prices range from X to Y. How does that feel for you? Or you might say to someone, typically, talk to me more about how you've invested in similar services to this. Or you might say, for example, the service that that we offer, can be a bit more expensive than other people. How do you feel around price versus quality? So you want to basically probe in around those subject areas, rather than, if you ask someone outright, for example, if you ask someone outright, if are you the decision maker, everyone will always tell you, yes, I am. The way to approach that is to say, who else is involved in making the decision alongside yourself? Or who else will be involved in working and helping you make the decision on this? Oh, it's just me. Oh, okay, fantastic. So there's no one else you go to counsel on these decisions? No, I make decisions myself. Okay, fantastic, no worries. But so don't ask someone outright those elements, because they'll not give it to you. And what I will do is I will send through to you, Jill. There's 42 questions that I've got on my resource on my website that you can use to ask these type of elements and the way you do it.
Excellent, thanks, James. This is such value, ladies. Does anybody else have any questions for James? Wave frantically at me if you want to take the floor. We're all trying to absorb all this information, James. Honestly, that's been really brilliant. I've certainly had numerous light bulb moments myself in that hour and a bit, and I'm sure I can tell from the nodding heads that others have. Would you be happy to also send us a copy of your slides?
Yeah, of course, no problems at all. And like I said, there's lots of resources, lots of videos on how to approach things. If I can be of use to anyone, just feel free to reach out to me on social media. All of them are James White Sales. And as I said, the Thursday night starts on the 19th of November. It's a 4-week course. All the money goes to this children's charity. So if you think, actually, I could improve, I'd like to sort of just do a bit more. I go through 4 phases: the foundations, building rapport and finding leads, identifying objections, and closing. So we can go through the whole area of start to stop.
Oh, that sounds brilliant. I'm up
Jill,
for that.
you put that lead in the follow-up, that link.
Yes, I'll get everything from James, and I'll identify where we should be going in the follow-up email I send out. Plus, obviously, the recording of this video, which James, I put them on our YouTube channel, and I don't normally, some of them I list. Are you happy for me to do this as a public one? Because it's such a lot of value. That would be great.
No issues. And please, my passion is helping brilliant business owners get great results. If you've got any questions, if you think afterwards, oh, well, he wouldn't respond to me, try me. Trust me, on social media,
he will.
I will reply to you. Or it might be, or one of the team will, but I will definitely do my best. We will get you what you want to get, and let's get you guys prices 20% increase, right? 20% starts now.
I'm saying it in my head all the time.
I feel a SWIP call's coming on, Jill.
Yeah, so do I. James, thank you so much. It's lovely to see all of you, and we'll see you in the follow-up email. And James, thanks once again. And nice
Thank you, James.
Bye, everybody.
Bye bye now.
Bye. Bye.